Increlex is the prescription version of IGF-1. The prescription version that they sell for kids, when you inject it, it doesn't last that long in your system. It's powerful, but it doesn't last that long in your system. The stuff that they sell on like these peptide websites, which is the long R3 IGF-1, is a modified version of IGF-1 that has like a longer half-life in the body because they've added some side groups on it. So the IGF-1 binding proteins in the bloodstream, these are the binding proteins that kind of inactivate IGF-1. They don't recognize the long R3. So they can't bind it up and inactivate it. So it stays in the bloodstream a lot longer until the liver breaks it down. I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
RX Television, RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding, diet, training, supplementation, it is all on the table. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. So glad you can join us on this 20th day of December. We're going to go right into the questions. The first two questions on this show from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Well, this being the last episode till Christmas, the first question is, Dave, what is on your Christmas list?
I'm a very hard person to buy gifts for. I don't really have a list. I always am amazed when people come up with original gifts they send me or buy me. And one of my, I actually sold a snake to this one guy who I'm doing some business with. And he wanted to say thank you because I'd done a video that helped him out with something. And so he sent me 2 live Maine lobsters. And that was a very original gift because I do like lobster, and I would never even thought that you could even send that to someone. So that was pretty good. I got to tell you, that was probably one of the better gifts I've gotten in a long time. And I told you, the other day, one of my clients also sent me Christmas toilet paper, which I thought was pretty original too, because everyone needs toilet paper, right? And why not have toilet paper with little Santa Clauses on it? So that was original. So it's not how much money you spend on the gifts that you buy me. It's the originality that I reward now. Whereas when I'm a kid, you have a certain list. I want, whatever, in television, Atari, whatever I wanted when I was a kid, when I was growing up, which dates me quite a bit by saying that Commodore, the Commodore 64, or whatever the latest and greatest was. And nowadays it's more like, well, what can someone buy me that I wouldn't buy myself, because it's an original gift. So anything original I like. That's the top priority. If you can come up with something original. And now I understand also why my father always used to tell me, look, he used to say don't get him a gift, but then he would complain if you did. But he liked a card. He instilled in me, you have to make a customized card. You cannot go buy a card in the card store. You have to make your own. And so my whole life I had to make him cards for Father's Day, Christmas, his birthday, and then I've been doing that for my kids, since they've been born. So it's just like kind of instilled in me, and I understand it now being a father, because it's original. Like, I'd rather have my kids create something and give it to me that I can remember and save it and stuff like that, than just something that someone else wrote on a card. So originality is key.
She's not actually joking about that. Just to give you all an example, my wife and I went to Cancun on our honeymoon. And so we're like shopping for gifts, whatever. And, my wife is like, oh, let's just get everybody like a mug or like a keychain or a shirt or whatever the case be, whatever. Like, well, what does Dave like? Whatever. I'm like, and I saw they had this whole section of cacao. They had this whole like The whole display, I guess they grow cacao in
That's right.
Mexico and different cacao related products. So I'm like,
Yeah.
no, he's gonna like that raw cup, the little bag of raw cacao. That is what he's gonna like. You want to get something like Cancun? I'm like, that is Cancun specific. That's the only thing he's gonna like in the store.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Sure.
very much so. That's what Dave likes. In case anybody
like this, look, I just finished my daughter's birthday's tomorrow. She hasn't seen this yet, but I just made her.
Oh wow, that is crazy.
Yeah, and then I wrote my little card in there. See, I have my father. It's like burned in my brain. I have to do stuff like that.
I'm pretty sure actually we discontinued this, but so many of you don't know this, or you may or may not know this, but Dave is like a ridiculously talented artist. Like in all the times that we were back in the Westbury studios together, we'd be doing a live studio show, and whether I was on camera or off camera, I'm sitting in studio. The entire show, Dave is doodling, and you would all call him out, and it's the funniest thing. He'd be doodling, and I look at him like, oh my god, like that's like a crazy like Picasso, whatever you just drew, whatever. And so then Tyler, our last studio producer, he started an Instagram account. I think it was like Palumbo Doodles or something like that, but it was like really, really cool. I don't know what
he was putting up my art pieces until he left me and moved up to Tallahassee, there, wherever he is.
Well, we continue now on the Dave Palumbo Experience
Christmas
app.
special,
I've looked all around the app and can't find a guide to Dianabol. Can that be an addition to this app, or can you tell me in terms of dosages, when to take it, food or no food, things like that? So I guess the Dave Palumbo Ultimate Guide to Dianabol.
I guess it would be applicable to even all orals. There's two schools of thought. One is take it all in the morning. This way you get nice peak dosages during the day, and then it'll taper off to the night, give your body a little break at night. The other school of thought is take half in the morning, half at night. They're really they're 24-hour type pills, but they definitely have peaks and valleys. So if you take 2 doses, one in the morning, and you get like a peak up to here, and then as it's coming down, you take another dose, and it kind of keeps it up there a little longer. You're not going to go as high, but you're going to stay, at an elevated level for longer. So I usually tell people, depends what you're using it for. Some people use orals, and I'm not really a big oral fan, to be honest with you. But if you're using orals just to kind of get things started off, and you're going to be on injectables too, then there's probably no reason to have peak levels all the time, because you're going to have your injectables that are going to be up there as well. So you're never going to get drops. So you're better off probably taking it all in the morning and then let it just taper off. And then when you're sleeping at night, you're kind of detoxing from it. That's probably a better solution. Now, whether to take it with food or not also has to do with how your body handles it. Like some people have, like, especially from Anavar, it kind of kills their appetite a little bit. So I tell sometimes take it at night, right before you go to bed. This way, it's not, you're growing while you're sleeping anyway. And then when you wake up in the morning, it's not, the levels are not high enough, and it kind of is flushed out of your digestive tract already. So you should be able to eat. And that seems to work better for people like that. Also the few times I used Dianadol, and I never made it more than 3 weeks. I always try to go 4 weeks, and I couldn't do it because I couldn't eat. I would try to take them at night. I would try to take a half. It just didn't work for me. But usually if people have an irritated stomach, taking it with food is a better idea than taking it on an empty stomach, because on an empty stomach, it can irritate the lining of your stomach. So that just goes to show you how toxic, a lot of these compounds are. Anavar is not toxic, but for some reason, it just irritates the digestive tract in some people. And I guess if you're dieting for a competition, that's probably not a bad thing, because it kind of kills your appetite a little bit. But when you're off season, you're trying to jam a lot of food down. It doesn't make for a comfortable way to have to gain weight. That's why I never used orals in the off season at all, usually, because I just couldn't eat enough food on it. And I had to eat an exorbitant amount of food. So, it really depends on how your body reacts. And like I said, some people are doing like cycles where they're just doing orals. When you do that, you want to spread them out throughout the day. If you're taking injectables, 1 dose in the morning is usually good. Unless it bothers your appetite, then you might want to take 1 dose right before bed. And that's kind of my little guide in a nutshell. Now, these 2 questions were from the Dave Palumbo Experience app, which once again is my app you can download from the iTunes store or the Android store, depending on what phone you have. It's $29 a month. You get me as a coach in your back pocket, essentially. All my videos I've ever done, all my written articles are in one place. All my protocols, off-season, pre-contest, cycles, on-season, off-season, women, men, everything you can possibly imagine that I've ever talked about or written is in that app. Plus, we put up a workout every single week. Plus, I do a Q&A video, every week exclusively for the app members. And they answer everyone's questions in the app in an open forum, so everyone sees everyone's questions, everyone's answers. It's a really good learning, app. I know a lot of my clients have that and the coaching with me, but some people just do that, and that's like their coaching. And they got like Dave Palumbo as their coach for $29 a month. It's great stocking stuffer around the holidays. We usually sell a lot of memberships around then. It's a good idea for if you can't think of something to buy your significant other. It's a great little gift, and they really appreciate it, especially if they're bodybuilding fanatics. So check it out, and I appreciate all the support, guys.
Let's go to our Instagram and Facebook questions. Again, if you're not already following us on Instagram, official_RxMuscle. On Facebook, just type in RxMuscle. Right now on the channel, on the YouTube channel, all new episodes of the After Hours podcast, Heavy Muscle Radio. And then tomorrow or Friday, depending on our schedule, the return of Jimmy the Bull and Lee Priest show, The Confessional, hosted by, of course, Tyler, the producer. So The Confessional returning. A lot of you have been asking us as far as what happened to the show. Things got a little crazy after the Olympia, but we're now back in a groove. And so that show is going to resume. So tomorrow or Friday, The Confessional will be dropping on the channel. If you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below. And as always, this month and every month, we appreciate all of your support. We have a lot of really good questions, so I'm going to try to blaze through as many as we can. Question about shoulder surgeries from Raymond Perez. After your shoulder surgery, do you notice anything different, such as how the muscles contracted, and can you still build, and in his terms, jumbo palumbo shoulders with a replacement? Also, how long is the recovery?
It's a very good question. And, to be honest, you got to remember, when I did my shoulders, I was in the process of, trying to have my kids. So I wasn't on any hormone replacement whatsoever. So I did it all, pretty all natural, so to speak. And so maybe my recovery was still good, but maybe my recovery could have been quicker in terms of size regaining because of that. My strength wasn't great, but maybe also it might have prevented me from doing anything stupid too. And I think it's a good idea to take a long time to let that surgery really knit up well. My surgeon didn't want me doing any physical therapy. He didn't want me doing any lifting whatsoever for 12 weeks. That was his, they had me just doing some stretching exercises, but he wanted nothing. He's like, I want you away from the gym. I want you going nowhere near a massage therapist or a physical therapist for 12 weeks. He's like, I want that thing to heal. And it's not the joint that's the issue. It's they have to cut through the rotator cuff tendon, one of them, the infraspinatus tendon. And what they do is they usually cut they sew the bicep tendon to your pec muscle, to the pec tendon, and then they cut it off of the rotator cuff, off of the attachment to the acromial process in your shoulder. So they relocate the bicep tendon, but you don't even know it because they're never detaching it. They're actually sewing it to the other tendon, the pec tendon, which he said is a good place to detach it to, and then they cut it off there, so you don't lose any tension or anything like that. So that has to heal. If you don't let that heal, and it re-tears, you're gonna be out of luck, and you're gonna have a lot of instability. So I listened to the doctor because I really believed in this guy, and he's a bodybuilder himself, and it healed really good. And from what he told me, I got probably the best results that he's ever seen. Now, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I'm very, very flexible, and I think that some people maybe have a limited range of motion after the surgery. And I didn't get my range back right away. It took a long time. But once I knew everything was solid and healed, I was able to pretty much do everything I was doing before. And I can lift and do every lift I did, when I was 18 years old with no pain. So I can shoulder press, I can bench press, I can double bicep. I have full range of motion. I could throw a baseball overhead. I could throw a football to my son. I don't know if my strength is the same because like he said, the attachment is, there's a little bit of a difference the way the shoulder joint is aligned from my natural biological way it was, but you adapt to it. And don't forget, I haven't used my shoulders correctly probably for 18 years. I've been compensating because of the pain, and they weren't externally rotating. So it's almost like I don't remember how they worked before. But however they work now, I've actually, since I put size on over the last 6 months, and it's been very gradual. I think people just started noticing it recently because I kind of surpassed where I was. I'm like at the 210 mark now. And in the gym, I'm lifting I'm lifting some decent weight. I'm benching like 180, which I really don't want to go much higher than that 185. I think that's enough. I don't need to go any heavier. I didn't think I would even get up to that. Matter of fact, when I told my doctor that, he was like, I want video. Because it took a while, but I added back a lot of the muscle that I kind of lost. And I could probably get bigger because I'm getting stronger now, I notice. But at the same time, I don't want to wear the joints out. So I try to really work the muscle and squeeze the muscle and not try to push weights that I really can't handle. I can dumbbell press, the 70s or 80s on the bench. So, but it took me a while. So I would say a solid year before the shoulder feels like part of yourself and you're good and you don't feel like vulnerable. And then it gets better and better from that point on. And obviously, as you add back more muscle, it feels better and better. And, I like I said, I have, full range, I have delts, and you can't really tell the difference very much. There's, it's a little different if, without a shirt, but it pretty much looks normal, but it took a while to get there. So you got to be patient. The key is listen to the doctor. And I would highly recommend it if you're in pain and you can't lift properly, don't put it off. Just get it done. You'll be so happy afterwards. I promise you.
Let's go to Lucian Galecki. Does increlex work better than GH? There's lots of info out there, of course, on GH, but not that much on IGF-1. Why is that? And I guess going back to the original, increlex versus GH.
Yeah. I have a theory on why that may be. And, increlex is the prescription version of IGF-1. The prescription version that they sell for kids, when you inject it, it doesn't last that long in your system. It's powerful, but it doesn't last that long in your system. The stuff that they sell on like these peptide websites, which is the long R3 IGF-1, is a modified version of IGF-1 that has like a longer half-life in the body because they've added some side groups on it. So the IGF-1 binding proteins in the bloodstream, these are the binding proteins that kind of inactivate IGF-1. They don't recognize the long R3. So they can't bind it up and inactivate it. So it stays in the bloodstream a lot longer until the liver breaks it down. But I still, given long R3 IGF-1 that's on the market now versus growth hormone that we know is real, like real legitimate growth hormone, I just think growth hormone works better. Now, back in the day when I was getting the long R3 IGF-1 from like the actual place that invented it, in Adelaide, Australia, for a brief period of time, there was a really good connection to that place that was available to the bodybuilding market. I got some really good results from IGF-1, but consistently, I think GH yields better results. And I don't know why exactly. And I don't know if there is, we always think that the growth portion of growth hormone actually comes from the release of IGF-1 from the liver. But there are some theories that possibly GH has a direct growth effect too on the body. I don't know if anyone's proven it yet, but I've read some articles that suggest it. So I don't know. If I had to invest as a bodybuilder in one or the other, I'd probably still go with growth hormone, assuming that you're getting real growth hormone. That's just my personal opinion.
Let's go to Ari Givany. I know we've had this question fairly often recently, it seems, but again, if you want to offer a quick refresher, persistent elbow tendonitis, how would you go about alleviating it so that one can train?
Yeah, I mean, there's a two-pronged approach first. I mean, I don't know if you took the first approach is usually to try to take nutritional supplements that help heal joint and connective tissue. Some people do it, but they're not really taking enough of the stuff. I would recommend using my Arthrolyze joint repair formula because it has the right dosages of everything. It has 4 grams of glucosamine, 4 grams of MSM. It has the biologically available, chelated form of boron in there. So, I mean, these are all things that your body needs. I would also suggest adding about 3,000 milligrams of vitamin C to your daily intake, because that's, a lot of people don't realize one of vitamin C's main functions in the body is collagen resynthesis, the rebuilding of collagen. So definitely helpful. In today's market, now that we know about it, I would use some BPC 157. I would do 200 micrograms of that twice a day. I feel that works more potently than the BPC 157. If you can get, one of those, that's a good, that you can use 200 micrograms twice a day of either one. They're both the same dosage usually. And on top of that, you need to figure out what's causing the problem. With elbow tendonitis, from my experience and having a really good relationship with my chiropractor and ART guy, Derlin Castro, a lot of elbow tendonitis is due to adhesions in the muscles of the forearm and or the shoulder. So you're getting, the weak point is here, but really the injury is not there. It's usually up below it or above it. And a lot the ART therapists get in there and they strip adhesions, scar tissue off these muscles, because the muscles are stuck together. Instead of moving like this, sliding past each other, they kind of move like this because they're stuck to each other. And then that torques this tendon in the elbow, and you get elbow tendonitis. So you keep working out, and it's rubbing that tendon in that groove against the bone there, and it's getting inflamed, and it never is going to go away. You could take off like 6 months and it'll feel better because you're not using it as much. But then as soon as you go back to it, you get it back again. So the only way to really fix the problem is to clear out these muscles above and below that are stuck to each other. And then once they slide past each other, now the therapeutics, you're going to take the Arthrolyze, the vitamin C, the BPC 157. Now that can go and do its trick and heal the injury here permanently. So that's the combo therapy you want to do. What I just told you, plus ART. If you don't know if you have an ART guy in your area, you can go to activereleasetechniques.com and you can put your zip code in, and they'll tell you who the accredited practitioner in your area is, and you can find out where they are and what their address is.
Let's go to where was it? Oh yeah. So we're gonna ask another refresher question. This one we haven't gotten in quite some time, but we have gotten a lot during the course of the run that we've been doing the show. It's from Warner Kurt. The best white rice to use for prep, and what's the best white rice for the off season?
I feel like I should start with I should call King Kamali and have him do like a George Farah impression. That's the Machan rice from the regions of Pakistan. No, I think all white rice is pretty much the same, to be honest with you. I happen to like jasmine rice, which is kind of like a white rice in the sense that it's very high glycemic index. It's funny because a lot of people say, well, how come you don't use like a brown rice that has a lower glycemic index in the pre-contest phase, because you would think that, you don't want to get a lot of insulin release. And the reason I don't do that is because when I'm dieting someone, I'm putting them on so little carbs that it really doesn't matter if they're eating a high glycemic or low glycemic carb. It's not going to really make a big difference because there's no chance of them storing those carbs as fat because they're under eating carbs for the day. So they're going to use it all for fuel or store it as glycogen in the muscles or liver. So it doesn't really matter to me. I usually just use white rice. So like I said, jasmine rice. I like basmati rice too, which to me, I still call that a white rice. I don't know. You're probably more of an expert, Sid, coming from.
I wouldn't be an expert as far as the composition of it. I would be an expert eating it.
Yeah. No, but wouldn't you say that they're all white rices, jasmine and basmati?
Yeah,
white? Yeah.
Very, very similar in terms of texture.
Yeah, they're all high glycemic carbs. When you talk about the dark rices, like the brown rices, stuff like that have like a husk on them, that makes it lower glycemic. And some people like those. I find that if I eat a lot of that, I sometimes get a little gassy from it. And I don't know if it's just harder to digest those. So if you're not overeating rice, I think it's fine to do a white rice. And you know what, to be honest with you, if I was on a limited budget, like food-wise, because I'm a bodybuilder and I'm eating a ton of food, I would just get white minute rice. Or even like sometimes the store has their own brand of minute rice. It cooks in like 5 minutes. I make bowls of it at a time. I put it in the refrigerator. You know what I usually do? This is a good, if you want to try something, if you're not dieting for a show and you're in the off season, I'll take minute rice. I'll put it in a big bowl, microwavable bowl. I'll fill it with as much water as they tell you to do on the directions. And then I add a little sea salt in there and I put some macadamia nut oil in there and I stir it in. And what the mac oil does is it lubricates all the rice. So when you cook it, the rice never sticks together. So it always kind of falls loosely. So you can put it in the refrigerator overnight if you have left, if you want to make a ton of it, and then all you have to do is put it back into the microwave, for a minute the next day, and it's not stuck together. It tastes just as good. That's the tricky. A little bit of mac oil, just mix it in there. I'm telling you, and it tastes like you put butter on this stuff. It's really, really good. It's a good little trick that you can try. And like I said, you don't have to go buy expensive rices if you don't want it. Now, look, if you have extra money and you want to buy different versions of the basmati and then jasmine, it's a little more expensive. Knock yourself out. But to me, white rice is white rice.
Let's go to Benjamin Hamza. I'm squatting 315 for 3 sets of 5 reps and want to build up to higher reps, such as 20 reps. Should I keep adding 5 pounds, work out until I'm doing sets with 405, or start adding reps? I can do 3 sets of 20 at 225 now. Does he
want to do more reps, or does he want to get bigger?
I'm not figure out. It's like a complex mathematical equation.
I'm not really sure what the goal is here.
So he wants to build to high reps, such as 20 reps. I'm trying to fail to understand.
I think he wants to build muscle, and he's been using high reps. I think that's what he meant to say. And look, to me, high reps does not build muscle. So if you're looking to build muscle, heavier weight, higher intensity, okay? And you can go as low as 4 reps and still build muscle, okay? So I tell people, keep raising the weight until you can't do more than 4 reps, with the weight you're using. Because I see guys, I have a lot of my clients send me video of them training, because sometimes people are not making the gains that I like them to. They swear they're eating all the food, they're taking the right drugs and the supplements. I'm like, something ain't right. Probably got to be there training. Or send me a video of you dumbbell shoulder pressing. So I get this video, and their form is really good. And I'm like, wow, look at him. Great form. He's full range of motion coming all the way down. I'm like, those dumbbells look kind of small. How much is that? 35 pounds. I'm like, you're like 250. I said, you're only doing 35-pound dumbbells? Well, otherwise, if I can't get 20 reps. So I'm like, what do you mean you can't get 20 reps? I said, you don't need to do 20 reps on every set. I'm like, I don't. That's what I read somewhere. So I'm like, how much can you do, and get 4 reps? Well, I could probably do 100-pound dumbbells. I'm like, well, let me see the 100 pounds. So then they get the 100 pounds and they bang out, 5 good reps. I'm like, well, then you could do probably 110s for 4 reps. So if you're not pushing your body with heavier and heavier weights, okay, for minimum of like 4 reps, and you might only get 2 or 3 reps when you first start doing that heavy weight. And that's fine. But ideally you want to get at least 4 reps on your last set with your heaviest weight. That's how you build muscle. You're not going to build muscle doing higher reps. So you can work up to 20 reps. You'll have great endurance, and maybe you'll be good at CrossFit, but it's not going to help you for building muscle in bodybuilding.
Earlier in the show, we had a question comparing IGF-1, increlex, and GH in terms of effectiveness. This question is, I guess, in terms of relationship. If you stop using GH, approximately how long does it take for IGF-1 levels to return to normal in a blood test?
I would say if you're doing this because maybe you're being drug tested for something, I always say give yourself like 2 weeks. In reality, probably 5 days, just to play it safe. It really shouldn't stay elevated more than a day or two, but I would never, risk that short a period of time. I would probably say if you really want to take an accurate blood work test, after 2 weeks after you stop your GH, then go for blood work. That should be back to normal. Because sometimes, just because there's no GH in your system stimulating the liver is so used to you taking the GH every day that it continues to crank out extra IGF-1, even in the absence of a shot of GH. So it might take, a week or two before your body kind of says, wait a minute, we're not getting any GH. Why are we producing all this IGF-1 from the liver? And then it stops. So I would say 2 weeks to be safe.
Nick Delio wants to know something that, I'm sure many people who watch this channel and are following a lot of fitness influencers who are talking about HRT and TRT and probably don't know the difference between the two. So he wants to know, simple enough, difference between HRT and TRT.
There is no difference. It's the same thing. Testosterone replacement therapy, hormone replacement therapy. I guess HRT would be more apt to depict both sexes, women and men, because some women might get estrogen and progesterone replacement, or thyroid even replacement. That would be considered hormone replacement, right? To me, hormone replacement means, testosterone in my mind, but it doesn't necessarily, but it really does encompass more than that. So I guess TRT would be testosterone replacement therapy. So you're just talking about testosterone, whereas HRT would be hormones in general replacement. So you might go to a hormone replacement clinic where they might put you on different stuff. Maybe if your progesterone is too low, they might put you on that. If testosterone is too low, they'll put you on testosterone. If your thyroid's too low, they'll put you on some Armour thyroid or something like that. So that, I guess, that technically that would probably be the distinction.
Let's go to Bilal Hamid. A question is about tanning. In some competitions, they offer 2 tan applications instead of 1. I guess in your competition career and what you've seen as a coach, what is the difference between 1 and 2 coat, and is it worth getting 2 applications?
I would never do 1 application, period. I have guys that I work with in some other countries. It's not usually in the US, they know better, and they're white as a ghost, and they only offer 1 coat, and they're offering it the day of the show. Like, I'm like, what are you getting tanned? I said, you're pale as a ghost. They're like, oh, they're doing it tomorrow morning. I said, yeah, but you're on stage tomorrow morning. They're like, yeah, they're gonna do it like an hour before I get on stage. I'm like, you're not gonna have enough color by then. Are you kidding me? What if it's not enough? And sure enough, they never have enough color. So you definitely got to go at least the night before and then the morning of for a second spray. Personally, if you're really light and you don't tan yourself, you probably need 3 shots, I would say, especially if you're going for like a pro card or something like that. I mean, let me tell you something. When I was competing, there was no spray tanning. We had to do it ourselves or have, a significant other help us or a friend help us. And it was a nightmare because you had to put on a million coats. And if you were, if you really cared about how you looked, it was, you'd be driving yourself crazy. Oh, they missed a spot. Oh, I smudged the spot. I sat down. For 2 days, I'd be with a bottle of Protan, dipping it in this cup and touching myself up in the mirror. And then invariably, we have like where I would wear wrist straps, you'd get calluses there. You don't realize it. But then when you start painting it, you start seeing it's darker on your wrist. It's darker on your elbows. And so then we came up with tricks with putting a little moisturizer on that area so that the tanning stuff wouldn't absorb. It was terrible having to do it yourself. But, at least it got done the way you wanted it to. Nowadays, it's 10 minutes in a spray tan booth. But a lot of these companies try to get away with, hey, you only need 1 shot because they got too many people to do. Always get at least 2 shots. Always. You got the night before and then the morning of the competition, you have to get 2 minimum. And if you, like I said, if you're pale and 2 is not going to do it, you might even want to get a 3rd, and so many people lose shows on tan. I know it sounds ridiculous, but if you're too pale and you see someone else with a nice, really dark, rich tan, even if they're not that lean, a dark tan will just make their body look that much more popping, professional, polished, and it would break my heart to lose because I have a terrible tan. Really, that would be horrendous.
Take a couple of quick hitters. Ronan, your opinion regarding DHB, especially as it relates to liver toxicity or enlargement?
Say it again.
DHB, but I guess in relation to liver toxicity or enlargement.
The drug DHB?
Yeah.
Dihydrobolderon?
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. I don't want to give advice that I'm not really sure. I don't think I can quantify taking that drug with liver toxicity and how much it would cause, because personally I never used it. So I don't really know what the level of liver toxicity is on that, and if it would cause liver enlargement. By and far, anabolics are really not that toxic to the liver, except when you abuse them. There's only been maybe 3 people that I know of in my entire 30 years I've been doing this that actually had liver problems from taking steroids. And because you really have to take a lot. They're not as toxic as people think. The guys that tend to never go off are the ones that have the problem. If you go off cycle 8 weeks, 9 weeks, at least once a year, more than likely you're not going to have a problem with the liver. Usually what guys have a problem with is their kidneys because they don't monitor their blood pressure. And that's usually what I see happen. And it has nothing to do with the steroids. I mean, steroids could raise your blood pressure, obviously, but if you're not addressing blood pressure issues, that's when guys have problems. So most of the guys you hear like later in their career that had problems, oh, it was, hey, did you hear so-and-so? He's on dialysis or he's got a kidney transplant. And that's caused by high blood pressure. Now, orals can jack the blood pressure up, and so can certain toxic, androgenic steroids like trenbolone can jack up blood pressure quite a bit. So I think people start associating a lot of these drugs, like even the DHB, with toxicity, and it's just that they're high in androgens and they raise blood pressure. Like I said, I haven't seen too many liver issues, but if you do have a predisposition for liver stuff, taking liver toxic drugs is not obviously advised. And that's why I always recommend that people use longer acting injectables, because they tend to be less toxic. Also, while you're on a cycle, you should probably take a liver detoxification product that has milk thistle in it. I sell on my DavePalumbo.com website the Bill Llewellyn's product, Liver Stable, which is really, really good. A lot of guys get really good results, and I use it myself, and just because I want my liver to be able to flush toxins out. With silymarin, which is what the ingredient in these liver detoxification products use, which is milk thistle, but the actual compound is silymarin. It dilates the bile ducts in your liver. Now, your liver, if you think you know what your liver looks like, it's a big, massive organ, and it has all these little ducts in it, throughout micro ducts that lead into bigger ducts that lead into a bigger duct, ultimately into the bile duct, and all the bile drains into the gallbladder, which is then released when you eat a fatty food meal. But all that drainage through all those little biliary ducts is how the liver detoxifies itself. It dumps all the toxins in there, and that's how it gets out of the body, through that bile duct, through the gallbladder, into the intestinal tract. If those ducts get swollen, or inflamed because the liver is being worked too hard, those little ducts can get pinched off, and then the toxins can't leave, and they go backwards into the liver, and they make the liver swell. And that's why a lot of times you can see like that. It's not even a long-term swelling; it's an acute swelling. The liver looks bigger on an ultrasound. It looks, sometimes once you start seeing fibrotic tissue laying down, that's not good. That means the liver is being damaged permanently. But for most people, it's just an inflammation because the toxins can't get out of the liver. Once you add a product like Liver Stable in, it dilates those vessels and all that gunk. It's like a hose that's being kinked off. The hose gets opened up, all the junk flows out of the liver, and you detox it. So my suggestion is, if you're going to be on anything that is toxic, even any anabolic cycle in general, you should probably take something that's going to help detoxify that liver. Liver Stable is a great product.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Again, if you haven't already done so, subscribe below. Subscribe to the channel. If you're new to this channel, we do ask that you subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you're not going to miss any of our shows, segments, updates. Of course, the Arnold Classic in 3 months. The list coming out this past Friday. So an exciting show on hand. I mean, the likes of Samson Dada coming back to defend his title against Hadi Choopan. Nexzilla, we're going to see Nexzilla for the first time on U.S. soil, and a very, 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 very deep Arnold Classic lineup. So we're going to be lining up all sorts of preview segments over the course of the next 3 months, getting ready for that show, as well as the contest schedule. We're going to be actually, by the time the show goes up, if you check our Instagram, we kind of laid out the Open Men's Bodybuilding Pro schedule for 2024. They released it on the IFBB Pro League website, but obviously it's a very long read, and for us to just copy paste wouldn't really do justice. So we designed something for it. Go check it out right now on our Instagram page, official_RxMuscle, breaking down the open class shows as well as what shows fall before the 2024 Olympia deadline. Right now on the channel, all new episode of Heavy Muscle Radio After Hours, and then tomorrow we return with an all-new episode of The Confessional with Jimmy the Bull and Lee Priest. And then, of course, Lee Priest also on Iron Rage. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.